From out of the lab and into the gym, it's the CoachMePlus Applied Sports Science Podcast.
Hi, I'm Kevin Dawidowicz from CoachMePlus, and you're listening to the CoachMePlus Applied Sports Science Podcast. This is episode number 3, and with us is the head strength conditioning coach from the Niagara University Purple Eagles, Matt Wietlispach. Today we talked about some monitoring and alerts on a small budget, which was very interesting because Matt works at a smaller D1, so you get to hear some of his experiences in his first year as a D1 coach. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast with whatever app you're using, whether it be Stitcher, iTunes, or other. And make sure to go to CoachMePlus.com and subscribe to the Applied Sports Science newsletter by clicking the subscribe button in the top right corner. Without further ado, Matt Wietlispach. Matt Wietlispach, Niagara University, Purple Eagles. So we brought Matt on because obviously he's a friend of CoachMePlus. You worked with us for a little while, right?
I did.
Yep. You were the first strength coach to kind of join the team, I think.
Yeah.
Russo
coached baseball, so yeah.
Yeah.
First strength guy.
It was an interesting introduction. Like you actually got brought on by Doug McKinney, who we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked with Doug with the Sabres, right?
Yeah, I interned with them for like 6 months.
Okay.
With the Sabres.
Was that your first internship?
No, before that I interned with UB, and then before that I had I went like the junior college route, so I took a little different route where I went. I went to Elgin Community College, went to Parkland Community College, then I went to Erie Community College. So
okay.
2 community colleges in Illinois, 1 in Buffalo, where I was like the head strength coach, and then I would have, you're not making much money, so you're doing like work the rec center for minimum wage or personal train on the side, something. So that's what I was doing with those jobs. And then I got the ECC job, and while I was at ECC, I was teaching PE actually to make money, and then I got while I was there I had the Sabres internship and then the UB internship.
So that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand who might be on the outside of the industry, like first coming in, or maybe they're looking to be a strength coach, whatever it is like these internships that you do are like no pay. Like
not even when like the Sabres or you're at like a Division I institution. Yeah. It's very rarely paid. Like I just got my last internship with the Bills, and his was paid.
Okay. Which
is great. It was like $10 an hour. But that's like, I mean, like you laugh, but it's like that's like the best internship you can get in the world. You got the Bills, which is awesome to slap on your resume, NFL team. Then you're getting paid. Yep. If you could do a good job, you did a good job, and they're bringing them back for mini camps. But yeah, all of it is basically volunteer. Like you go and volunteer your time, and you learn, and you get your name out there, and you network.
How competitive was it out there? I mean, you're out there in the space. You're trying to get a gig, and you're lining up for the long haul. You're taking the free internship. You're basically, like you said, working extra hours, personal training, whatever it might be. But like, is the space filled with guys doing the same thing, or was it easy to get the positions that you were looking for?
Say yes and no. Like a lot of guys are interning and GAing and volunteering. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of guys did what I did. Was basically like I emailed these community colleges that were near me, and I was like, I want to work with any of your teams, and some of the teams got back, and some of the teams didn't. So some teams I would just work with baseball. Other teams I had like basketball, lacrosse, hockey, etc. Whatever team they wanted. But whatever coaches got back to me, I just emailed them directly, knowing they didn't have a strength coach.
Sure.
And I was like, hey, anything we could work out. And majority of times they threw you some money, but it was nothing like that really was worth your while. The worth your while was that they're a reference, and that you do a good job, and they say, hey, this Matt guy did a good job, and you get to put head strength coach on your resume. So I don't think a lot of people do that because that's a little harder, because you gotta seek those guys out, you gotta send them emails, you gotta hunt them down, and then you're basically strength coaching for no money, and then you gotta intern, and then you gotta find money. So
but I think you kind of nailed it with like networking, right? Like that's the key to all of this.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah. So who was like the guy who kind of opened the door for you first?
The first guy was Phil Ryan. So when I was at ECC, I was just working with the baseball team. I was actually helping coach baseball too. And oddly enough, they had a strength coach there, and like that was how I actually got in. I was like, I want a strength coach. And they're like, oh, well, we pay this guy from UB. He's a UB strength coach. His name's Phil Ryan. And I was like, cool, well, that's great. Now I'll get to learn from him, and I'll get to put that on my resume. So I worked with Phil for like a year and a half, and he was the guy who introduced me to the the Sabres, JT and Doug. So he was the one who got me in the door there, and then he worked at UB. So then I interned with him on the Olympic side. Well, Nate Harvey's the head guy. So he got me both those internships.
Yeah.
Which ultimately, that got me, having the internship with the Sabres got me the job with CoachMePlus with you guys. And then having that job and having like those references, which eventually got me the Niagara job when that opened up, because Doug put in a call, and then Phil put in a call, and then I'm friends with the athletic director at Kinesis who put in a call.
Yeah. And
then meeting guys even through CoachMePlus, which is great. Like I didn't even know the assistant AD at Niagara is Steve Butler, and he's best friends with Hal Luther. Hal's the strength coach with the Bills. And Hal called Steve and said, Matt's a good guy. He's the right guy for the job. And I didn't even know that nor ask for it. So it's crazy. Like networking's like the name of the game.
We had, it was kind of funny because before we brought you on board, I had 3 different coaches call me and give me reference for you. Like I had a coach I had 2 coaches from the Sabres and a coach from the Bills call me and say, hey, by the way, Matt's a good guy. I know he's looking for a gig.
Yeah.
And I remember you came in, I was like, how you had, Jason call me, and you're like, oh, I didn't know he was going to call.
Yeah,
like,
I just asked Doug to call,
yeah.
and then I guess a few more called, which was nice.
Yeah. So the lesson that you would give like a young coach who's trying to break in, like how did you get these guys to, vet you and say, Matt's a good guy. He's definitely worth a reference. I'm gonna call out for him.
Well, I think doing a good job speaks for itself. So you got to go in there, you got to work hard. Anything they ask, you have to do. I was there more than they asked me to be there. So I was there earlier, I was there later, and I did anything from stocking coolers to cleaning up towels to doing laundry, like whatever you need help with. I was doing, and then also what helped was like just putting it in their mind that you wanted to do this, right? And then when I would research jobs, and I would say, this is, we want to stay in Buffalo. I wanted to live in the Buffalo area.
Yep.
And like a job would open up and you'd say, hey, could you call these guys? And as long as you had a good relationship, they would call. And that's what I urge my interns to do too, is to intern as many places as you can. I actually have a lot of them split hours. So I'll have them come here to Niagara, and then I'll have them go to like UB, and I'll try to get them in with the Sabres or the Bills, just because the more people you know, the bigger your network is, and the better chance you have of getting a job.
So if you spend time with CoachMePlus, you got to travel. Oh, we were friggin' all over the place. I think the first week you got thrown in the car with Teo
and NFL Combine, I think, was the first week.
Yeah. So you got exposed to not only coaches in the States and all around the country, but you also got exposed to coaches who were from Europe and Australia and things like that.
Right.
The mindset, it seems to be in North America, is building your coaching experience through networking, right? Like you become part of this family tree, and you become part of everybody's network, and you work through that network. Where it seems that we find that the coaches who come from Europe and Australia seem to not follow that mindset. Instead, it's more about credentials and experience and things like that. So, what have you seen any other examples of that where it's like North America, you have to be part of the family tree, or watching other guys come in and just kind of bring it from Europe and come with PhDs and credentials and run it that way?
No, not at Niagara.
Well,
but,
obviously.
No, I really haven't seen that. I've seen more of like the North America style working better. I think the name, like at least here, my opinion is like experience is experience, and then people knowing you do a good job. So if you think of just at like a company, even CoachMePlus, like you went and you talked to those guys before you hired me.
Yeah.
So I think you always want somebody who's qualified, but you want somebody that you know is going to do a good job, and that you know somebody that you trust them. I think that's pretty key.
For the North American strength coach, it's more about like the mentorship, the guidance, the network, and kind of like walking you through the experience.
Yeah, I think so. Because if you have a guy under him, you want a guy who's going to follow your lead, who's not going to bring up, if your philosophy and your system is this way, who's not going to come in and say, you know what, well, I brought in this philosophy, and they might both be great, but if you have one guy saying, we should be doing A, and the head guy saying we should be doing B, like it creates a terrible culture.
Sure.
So I think that's what people are looking for.
Okay, interesting. So this is your first year as a D1 head strength coach, right? You're at Niagara.
Almost 1 year now.
Almost 1 year. What's it been like? I mean, you walk in fresh, right? Like brand new place, brand new experience. Your network is paid off. You paid your dues and everything like that, and you got the gig. So you walk in the doors for the first time. What's it like?
It's exciting. For me. It was really exciting. And that was where I went to school. So it was nice. Like I knew people going into it, which was good. I know my direct boss, which is the head athletic trainer. So I knew him. But beyond that, it was like overwhelming, because then you walk in and there's 18 teams, and at Niagara it's rare, because I think I'm kind of like a rare case where it's Division I, it's small school, but it's just me.
Yeah.
So there's no assistants. How
many kids you got?
It's about roughly 300, I would say.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 270.
Yeah.
So it's around 300, and it's just a lot. And then you get there, and I didn't come into the best situation. So the guy who was before me last time kind of at the end, wasn't doing a good job. That's why they made the move.
Sure.
So they had teams who didn't want to work with the strength coach anymore because they didn't like him. So that was half the teams. That was a fourth of the teams. A fourth of the teams never worked with him at all because he didn't reach out to him. And then the other half of the teams worked with them and liked him. So you had to like please those guys, because those guys were like, oh, well, we like the last guy. And then the other quarter you had to reach out to and like convince them that they should be working with a strength coach and they should actually lift. And the other quarter was like, hey, like I'm not gonna, I'm gonna do stuff different, and kind of selling them on your philosophy and the way you're gonna do things. So it's like bringing in like the half, and the other half was trying to like change the other guys' minds of like, oh man, I don't want a new guy. There was a little mixed feelings there, but it was overwhelming getting all those teams in. You got 18 programs to write by yourself. The days are long, but it's fun. I enjoy it.
So you've got, we were talking with Coach McKenney about this, and he had gone through 20 plus coaches over 30 years. He had to re-buy in every time that he did it, but he got to a point where he had this repeatable way of doing things. Like guys came in and had to kind of get on board again. You're walking in for the first time. You've got 18 sport coaches, and you got to convince them that what you're about to do is important. What techniques, what tactics did you play out there?
I'd say with like each group it was different. So like the half that like really liked the last guy, and were kind of like receptive to change. They were like, well, we did things this way and we don't want to change them. I had the advantage of knowing like what the bad parts were there, and a lot of it was injuries. So like with the hockey, for example, they had a really good relationship with the coach, but they had tons of soft tissue injuries, and the coach just thought that was bad luck. So I kind of walked in and I had known the trainer, and I listed, we went through like a couple years of the past injuries, and I said, this is something we want to look at, and this is something I can help with. And he wanted to know how, so we sat down, and that was when I started doing like grip strength for CNS fatigue with the hockey players.
Sure.
So we did that. We did it for a month, and at first we were just collecting data.
Yeah.
Collecting data, it was changing. The workouts were way different. Like, they were a lot easier compared to what they were used to, like playing in season.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't beating them up. And then, like, once practice started, I started showing them, or once game started, I started showing them, like, data that we had collected, and that guys were tired. So what was the big buy-in for him was they play Friday, Saturday, which is a tough for hockey. You play back-to-back games. Well, we'd go into Friday, and we'd be tired. So we'd play Friday, and it's a physical game, and they were shot for Saturday. These guys were bad. Like, Saturday, they had no energy. So they went in. They were all, literally, we were all -2 standard deviations, anyone who played.
So wait a second. So you're tracking information. You're using GPS, heart rate monitors?
No, so we're just, so I'll go back and cover that. So we're a very small budget school. So we use CoachMePlus to collect and analyze the data. So basically, it's like having an assistant. Like, CoachMePlus is like my assistant coach. Yeah. So what they do is they have a phone, they sign in on their app, and we have a question that just says, enter your grip strength.
But you don't need CoachMePlus for that. You can use Excel, you can do anything, but you're just collecting grip strength as one.
I'm collecting grip strength, but I don't have more than 2 minutes to analyze data.
Sure.
So if I wrote it on Excel, it would just be a number I never looked at ever again, right? So they put it into CoachMePlus, which also saves me time. So instead of Excel, like, they got to write it on the paper, and then I can go get it and I can look at it.
Yeah.
Well, then I got to put it into my computer. Somebody who has 18 teams with one guy, I'd like them to find the time for that. So I can't find the time. So they record it, and it's just there. They squeeze it 3 times, and they take their best score. We bought 14 grip strengths because we have 14 different rooms.
How much does that cost you?
And they do it when they wake up. Those are $28 a piece.
So you're getting like
$30 a piece, roughly.
But you're getting like a fatigue number for $28.
Yeah. So we bought 4. They were so cheap. The hockey coach was like, "We're going to buy one for every room." So that it was important that they're doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're waking up and doing it. Well, they would have to come here. If we only had a couple of them, so we just bought them all and it's $30. You buy 10 of them, it's $300. It's nothing.
Right.
So even for Niagara, that's nothing, which is saying on. So they do that. They record it. And basically, also what CoachMePlus does, and I'm sure you can do this on Excel if you're a good wizard, but we're looking at we have a 30-day moving average. So if there's scores like they grip strength and it's 100, and then we're taking standard deviations. So -1 will flag yellow, -2 will flag red, +1 or neutral's gray, +1's green, and then +2 is purple, which is we're Purple Eagles. So that's like their good indicator. So again, that's another thing CoachMePlus does. So they enter that score, all the numbers are run. I set it up so in the locker room and in each coach's office, they have a TV and it goes to their monitor. So they already know what, Billy Smith and all the other guys, Kevin Patterson, they know what all their guys' scores are. So that really helped, like, the buy-in when Friday they would be all in the yellows and he'd be like, well, it's hockey, they're going to be tired. And I'm like, okay. Saturday, they'd be on the red. And he'd be like, Matt, what's with this? And I'm like, they're tired. He's like, it's hockey season. Of course they're tired. I'm like, well, they're not going to play as well. And, we're going to see some injuries. So luckily, we didn't really have injuries. But the first couple of weeks, like, they played so bad on Saturday. So you play the same team. So we would play the team, and we didn't have a good year, but we would lose by like a goal, right? It'd be 3-2 game. Next game would come, we'd lose 8-4 or 6-1. Like, we would get killed.
So you're seeing like a major drop off.
Yeah, we would get we just couldn't skate. We couldn't skate with them. And we're like not a skilled team, I wouldn't say. So we kind of had to grind out and dig the pucks out of the boards. Well, when you can't do that because you're tired, you can't play your game. And we had literally no. Even if we lost 3-1, it was like we had no chance to win.
So you actually had the benefit of showing what you were tracking in basic information. Like I said, you're not using GPS, you're not using heart rate monitors.
Real simple. They're taking a minute to do that in the morning.
Strength. You're showing the coaches that information, and it's actually correlating to performance on the ice.
Yeah, and the best part is I'm not doing any work for that.
So how long did it take to get coaches to understand, okay, what we've been doing, since I walked in the door, and what you've been doing over, the past couple of years of coaching, is making your guys more tired than...
He noticed it at first. I think he didn't want to believe it. So then I was kind of backing off the workouts. But after 3 weeks, when they hadn't won a game, or they'd won 1 or 2 games, he was like, "All right, Matt, what do we got to do?" So I think, as bad as that is, that we were losing games, that kind of helped. So, and then we talked about practice. So we got to, and I did not tell him how to run a practice at all. But basically we had, Sunday was our active recovery day, where they came in and they rode a bike and we did cold tubs. And again, we don't have many things to do. So
Sure.
you got a bike ride, you got a cold tub, you got an easy skate or an easy jog if you run. We did basic ART work, like foam roll or partner smashing, taking a barbell and rolling your quads out, all that stuff, which again, no equipment. So, and then Monday was usually their hardest day.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we did it was, if we were yellow, majority of the guys were in the yellow, and then we have another group dashboard where that you could see the team. So that if the team's average is yellow, or the team is red, or the team is neutral or green.
Interesting.
So that was also a big one. So if it was yellow, he did a medium practice. If it was gray or green, he had a hard practice.
Really?
So that's basically how he ran everything. So I said, if it's yellow, it can be medium. If it's red, it's got to be easy. And if it's gray or green, you could do whatever you want. So he would look at the average, and if it was gray or green, they would get off the ice and be like, "Oh my God, practice was so hard," the classic complaining. But and that was basically how I run. And at the end of the season, we would go Friday, Saturday, Sunday active recovery, Monday, Tuesday, or Monday was a medium day, Tuesday was an easy day, Wednesday was a medium day, Thursday they barely, it was they just skated and did skill work. So we didn't even have a hard day towards the end of the year, but we only had, we didn't have any soft tissue injuries. We reduced concussions, or I'll get into that later, but we only had a few. We had 2 shoulder injuries.
Okay.
And that was both impact from guys getting
Sure.
hit in the boards.
Contact injuries.
One was an AC separation, and the other kid at the end of the year tore his labrum. So the only 2 injuries we had.
So
all year.
How many injuries did you have the year before that?
I don't remember.
It was
I pulled up multiple years together. It was over 3 years they had and again, you have to report. So this is going to sound higher than it was. You had to report if they go to the trainers, it has to be logged. They
Sure.
can go to the trainers and say, "Oh, my elbow is sore."
Yeah.
But I want to say it was they were in the 70s for 3 years.
Jeez. So you're just employing really basic principles, right?
Just basic stuff.
Measure fatigue, change the program based on.
And then we also they also had concussions, was a big one.
Yeah, explain. There's, and it's kind of funny. We're constantly talking about grip strength as being an indicator here.
Right.
Before you get into the concussion thing, what kind of tied you into thinking about that as your key piece? What other stuff are you tracking besides grip strength? But that one being one of your key pieces.
That's the key piece. We do subjective questionnaires.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ask 5 questions
Sure.
eating, sleeping, mood, general levels of soreness, and then we have a body chart that pulls up through CoachMePlus, which is where they can indicate areas of soreness,
Sure.
which is helpful too. And then we do weigh-ins, weigh-outs.
Yep.
So I sold that to the players and the coaches as we're going to reduce injuries, being hydrated. We're also going to reduce soft tissue injuries, but I went more at the concussions.
Okay.
Because the more hydrated you are, the less chance you have of doing anything with your brain. So we did weigh-ins, weigh-outs, and we did percent. Then we would show them the percent weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was 2% is yellow and 3% above. Between 2 and 3% weight loss was yellow, and between 3 above is
acute daily change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for the daily change. So they had to weigh in, weigh out each day. And basically, if they at the end of the year, they were so good with it. We had drinks in the CoachMePlus app too,
Yeah.
that they can go and log, and then see what to drink. And at the end, they knew, like, if they were yellow, they needed this amount. If they were red, they needed this amount. So at the end of the year, we kind of had it down where if you were in red, you took a Pedialyte. You know, they knew how many ounces, like 64 ounces of water and a pickle juice. If you were yellow, you took either a pickle juice, a Gatorlyte, or a Pedialyte, and then I think it was like 32 ounces or something. So, like, they knew they had to do that. So that was another, like, ingrained thing in their head, and nobody did it. So we did ask a lot for them when it's all said and done. Like, they're entering the questionnaire, they're entering the grip strength. That's done first thing in the morning, which will take them a couple minutes. Before they skate, practice, or game, they weighed in and they weighed out.
But let's go back to this. If you didn't have CoachMePlus, you're just using Excel and stuff like that, which you could do all this in. What you're doing. You have spent $300 on grip strength equipment. We had a scale. Yeah, you have a scale. You have your fluids. Wellness questionnaire doesn't cost anything to implement, and you've just employed monitoring in your hockey program and immediately reduced soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, and that's and then that's it. So that's all we paid. I mean, the supplements and all that is you get down the road and then you we're changing different things that we have available. We brought in Pedialytes and we're trying to bring in other products like the right stuff and different proteins, but that stuff hopefully will come in the future.
So from our standpoint, we're doing this podcast. It's the Applied Sports Science podcast, and the interesting thing is that we'll be talking to coaches about their heart rate variability and about their GPS numbers and best way to analyze data. How do you modify drills and everything else like that. But you're doing this at a level that is effective but affordable.
Yeah, very simple too. I know you can get more in depth with HRV and GPS,
sure.
And there's definitely better. I'm sure it can be done a little more scientifically, but that worked for us. It was simple. It's easy to attain, and then there's not like a specific load number or anything we're putting on a person. It's just overall how is the team feeling and how he's going to manage that practice.
So, did you want to elaborate on the concussion stuff? So, what you guys?
We had one concussion the whole year, and again it was 3 years, but they had I think it was like 17 or something in 3 years.
Okay.
Or 13, something like that.
Yeah.
They had over 10 in 3 years, and we had one. That's
incredible, man. Good job.
So, yeah, that was nice. Like a lot of some of that's luck too, but
yeah,
it was good that the players bought in too, and like they knew what they had to do, and they took the initiative to do it.
Yeah.
So that was really good.
So what was so you're showing coaches numbers, they believe in it, they get into it. Does that help you then sell to other coaches what you should be doing?
Yeah. So then that they were like the revolution. So they were the team we started with. And then, Dave Burkholder, the coach, told, you talk to coaches and you talk to whoever's in your circle. And after we came back from Christmas break, I had 4 coaches. It was lacrosse, volleyball, women's basketball, and then softball. We're like, why aren't we doing this stuff? And I was like, well, we can, so we did it. Everyone did a little different. We did grip strength with softball, but with women's basketball and volleyball, we did vertical jump. So I bought the vertical jump mat.
Sure.
Forget the name of it off the top of my head. The Vertec, maybe.
Yep. Yeah.
Just again for simplicity. So
were you looking at vertical jump height, or were you looking at multiple jumps in flight time?
We did vertical jump height, and what I did for volleyball was they took their normal 3-step approach. So most of them volleyball they take 2 or 3 steps. So whatever their approach was, depending on their position, they took that approach and they jumped, and they would do 3 jumps. So we did that. We only have one mat, which was a little more tough. So we did it every day before practice. So they warmed up and they did it before practice. Women's basketball is the same way. They warmed up, they did it before practice. So the times varied a little bit, which wasn't an ideal world, but we had the same exact setup. So they took their 30-day moving average. If their vertical jump was a 20, the coach, we'd look individually at players, and then the coach had the group dashboard of all of them, and it would, again, I just kind of explained to him, if we have a game Thursday, we want them as gray or green, as close as they can be. Obviously, towards the end of the season, it's hard.
Sure.
But the volleyball coach did great with that. And I think a lot of coaches, too, they have, the way they run practice, and it's just the way they run practice. So, nobody's explained to them. So, even the volleyball was well, when do you have, a hard or medium day? And he was well, we kind of do the same thing each day, basically, at practice. They have their routine, and it's kind of the same setup each day, so it never changed.
Yeah.
So when I explained to him, if it's Wednesday and we play Saturday, or if it's Wednesday we play Thursday, and Wednesday everyone's tired, we can't have that same practice. And he's well, that makes a lot of sense. So I think even just bringing it up sometimes, as simple as that sounds, was totally changed the way they did things. And then that helped the players, the girls, buy into the importance of strength training and the importance of eating right and being hydrated and feeling good and sleeping. So part of the questionnaire is answering, how many hours you slept. In college, sometimes they like to go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at 6, and yeah. So, oddly enough, half the time they did that, their jumps were really poor. And
so they actually got to see it, right?
Any competitive athlete, you learn your jump. Yeah. So they know their jumps. They know when they're tired. Yeah. They know when they feel good. And they learn them over time, which I think is, for me, I thought was a good thing, because they're what could I have done? So then we'd be well, I'd take a few minutes with them. Well, you slept 5 hours. Why'd you sleep 5 hours? And they're well, I was, procrastinated, they had homework, whatever. So that was a big thing, was just explaining to them sleep. Sleep's going to help them recover. And then eating was a big thing, because we had nutritionists come in and give them a meal plan, but they didn't want to follow it because they didn't want to change the way they ate. But that helped them too. So once they saw those results,
this is all 101 stuff, right? It's education.
It's just education of why they're doing it, and I think that helped them a lot. Women and volleyball was great, so we didn't have a single injury. Women's basketball was good. We had our best player tore their labrum when she fell down from a rebound, but no soft tissue either. But they basically, at the end of the year, there's a new coach, and some players had quit, and some players got kicked off the team. So they had 8 players, and only 7 of them could play because the one girl had torn her labrum.
Oh, wow.
So we were borderline yellow, red all the time.
So you actually got to see it in these things that you're measuring.
We were always, volleyball was easy. We would hit, it was, we got them green almost before every game. It was because it's not that hard of a sport, right?
They would beg to differ.
Yeah, but just it's not that taxing on their body, right? They could play a game, then they don't play again until the next week. So they had a nice schedule.
Yeah, okay.
Women's basketball, they're playing all different times. They're traveling. They're taking planes. They're taking buses. And they're going all over the place. And then they only had 7 girls who could play. So 2 of their girls were playing all 40 minutes every single game. They never came out. So those 2 girls were we had to monitor very closely. So at the end, they really didn't. We took it. We decided to not. They really stopped almost lifting in general. It was very basic. We did very basic movements that wouldn't make them sore. We did a lot of mobility. We did a lot of stretching. We had one day that was. This actually started with women's basketball. My mom's a yoga instructor. We had one day where. She put together this routine, and she put it on YouTube. We'd go through it. So we did that with them. That was one of their lifts.
Cool.
And sometimes that was the only lift, and then other times we had a full body lift. So we really had to scale it back, but nobody got hurt. But we were going into most games pretty tired. But that was a rare case.
So The one thing I always ask about vertical jumps whenever people tell me that they use it for testing is how do you deal with an injury or how do you deal with an athlete who has an injury? They can't do a vertical jump.
Right.
It might be an ankle, maybe whatever. What would you switch that with in return to play? Like you're waiting for this athlete to come back, return to play. What else would you do instead of vertical jump?
If they weren't vertical jump, it depended on if they had hurt their knee or they had hurt their ankle. If it was a lower extremity injury, we'd go to the trainers, which in volleyball and basketball, we didn't have either of that the whole year. So I didn't come across that, which was pretty fortunate.
Figure out next year.
But
or hopefully never.
Yeah, we didn't have like a step protocol, so I'm not really sure what we would do, but we would have return to play with the trainers. But we probably just wouldn't have them jump then. And then we'd look more at the questionnaires. We'd look more at their eating and the sleep. It would probably be the indicators we went to. Yeah. It would be too late to break out like a grip strength because we wouldn't have enough numbers.
Yeah, have you seen there's what the hell's Nordboard? And we talked about this in the last podcast too, but they do ISOs on the...
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. The flywheel?
No, not the flywheel one. Actually, that's not a bad one, though, too. You can actually get a number off the flywheel without doing a submaximal movement, basically. Or not a jump, but not an impact.
Right, like an isometric hold or something.
Yeah. Excuse me. That's actually... So, volleyball, no soft tissues except for impact injuries.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man. So volleyball jumped on, basketball got on board?
Basketball got on board. Basketball, they were actually a big supporter from the beginning, but we didn't I did the grip strength and everything in hockey, and then they're like, well, we need to be doing this. So they kind of came on, but they were a big supporter from the beginning.
Okay. So you mentioned that the basketball team travels a lot, though, right? A lot of planes, trains, automobiles.
Yeah, they travel a ton.
So how did you modify your programming based on travel, or did you just use your numbers to tell you?
So we did that through the app as well. Like you're asking for ready to play or workout wise?
I mean, so I got I got a couple of games this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on the bus for both of them, and I come back. Are you modifying based on the feedback, or are you planning your modifications?
Well, we would have a workout plan, but I'm looking at that. So if they come back, I'm more looking at it as an individual base because basketball was so small.
Yeah.
There was 8 of them or 7 of them technically. So I would look at that individually. And I had a basic plan that was completely changed once that happened.
Sure.
And then I actually wrote their program week to week.
Okay.
Because it was such a unique case. So when they came back from travel, we did yoga the second they came back. So a lot of times, again, I have 18 teams and it's just me. So a lot of times that was done on their own. So they would get back, let's say Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. At 3 o'clock they were doing it.
Wow. Okay.
That day they had to do it. So that was kind of the process. Like you get back, you do it.
Yeah.
You land and you play. You get there on Monday, and your game's on Wednesday. You're doing that yoga session that day. So, I think, and a lot of studies will show doing something right when you get off the plane, something like low impact, just to get the body going and kind of calming the nerves, getting the central nervous system down, does a lot of good. So they bought into that, and then the lift when they were with me, I mean, we had individual sheets at that time, so they had their names on it, and it was, I mean, we probably spent 30 to 40 minutes in the weight room, but it was very basic. So
sure.
And it went all the way back to what we evaluated them at the beginning, what kind of squats or deadlifts or pulls, and what they were looking at. So they were very easy to make everything individual because there's so few of them. But the 2 girls who played, they would come in, and maybe a day for them, for example, would be we'd go speed squats to a box. We'd be doing 6 sets of 3. They would do they didn't really jump either because they jumped enough. So we would do that. Then we would do some type of accessory work. We would do some type of single leg work for their hamstrings, single leg RDL maybe, and then we would do maybe like a single leg squat, depending on the girl, or like a ISO hold squat. We focus quads, hamstrings to prevent ACLs.
Okay.
So that was they would do those 3 movements and they would be done.
So
those are the 2 girls who played all the time.
Nice. One of the interesting things that we've seen over the past year has been a lot of blowback from sport coaches who are like, well, my players are too soft now. We've got all this recovery stuff. We've got all this, we're resting them more. We're doing yoga when they get off the bus instead of, what they used to do. Have you faced that yet?
With men's basketball, it's still kind of an uphill battle.
Okay.
So, the old school thought is still tough, and I guess we can get into that now. It's a battle I'm still kind of trying to change. So they had right now it's summer session 2 and 3, which they do with me, and then they get into the regular season. But before they do that, they do the conditioning with the coach. Mm-hmm. So again, like 18 teams, I can't be everywhere at one time. So like I do the lift with them, but a lot of 9 times out of 10, the coaches are doing the conditioning. Okay. I'm not doing it. So with a lot of them, I'll sit down and we'll talk about it. And again, I'm not going to tell them how to run their practices, but I'll give them different ideas, such as fartlek runs or interval runs or bike sprints, and give them just different things to do and my philosophy behind that. So for basketball, men's basketball, they haven't changed or kind of bought into that yet. The coach hasn't, at least, because he wants them working hard. So they, on the other hand, had a ton of injuries last year. So in preseason alone, we had one pulled hamstring. We had a kid ruptured his calf. He tore his calf muscle. He needed surgery. So he pulled it first, and then he tore his calf muscle because he came back too quick. And then hamstring, we had one more guy do something. Maybe it was a quad, or maybe it was 2 hamstrings. I can't remember. But there was 3 guys, and they only had 12 players. All soft tissue. So that was during their conditioning, and it was like a track workout. It was insane. So I think you just gotta find the approach that works. So for him, I haven't found it yet, but for the other coaches, just explain to him that whatever player you have, having them for, if you play 30 games and it's your best player, would you rather have them play 30 games and be very, very, be almost optimal, or would you rather have them 20 games, but the 20 games they play like a freak, but they missed 10 games? Most of them would rather have them play the 30 games.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at, everybody points to the Spurs, pulling out guys and limiting minutes and everything else like that. You would think that would translate into college hoops and down, but like I said, we did see a lot of blowback from college basketball coaches who are like, nope, we've been monitoring, we've been tracking, and don't care.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like an old school mentality that's hopefully going to change. I think what I've done for basketball, and we're going to see if this works, is the players really like me and respect me, so I've gotten their buy-in where now they're like, they want me to take the reins and go to coach, and it's really not that they even want it. I guess, the coaches look at it as it's easier, we're being soft, but you can make the workout a lot harder, just more efficient. Instead of them running, I think some of the workouts are like they'll run like 400 meters they'll do like 8 400-meter repeats with like a minute break. Yeah. Which is like insane. Yeah. So that's why they have a lot of hamstring injuries. So just explain to them we can get more out of a short interval with a longer rest, and a short interval with a longer rest, and we still can pick up the volume and intensity. And they're still going to be really tired and get in good shape, but they're not going to get hurt. Especially the other thought to that is, at a school like Niagara, we have, a certain amount of good players.
Sure.
So we're not USC or Duke, so we might have 5 really good basketball players. Well, after the 5, there's usually a significant drop-off.
You don't have, like, next man up kind of
We don't have – you got to have that mentality, but
I
we
mean,
don't
like,
go
you don't
from –
have the talent. You don't have 5 stars lined up.
Yeah, we don't have a 4-star. We don't even have a 3-star or 2-star recruit sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
So the guy or girl on the bench is usually like a freshman or sophomore that we're still developing. They're not a freshman who can come in and average 10 points. So keeping them healthy is really like a byproduct of them winning and keeping their job ultimately, because if your best players get hurt for the next 3 years, you're not going to win.
Well, so go back to your hockey, women's basketball, volleyball analogies. When you saw fewer injuries, you were managing based on fatigue and things like that. Like, did that translate into better on-court performance?
With hockey, yeah, definitely. The Saturday games were like unbelievable. You could just watch, and they were better. We didn't have a good year. I think they had like 8 wins, but at the first month of the year, the closest Saturday game was like 3 goals.
Okay.
The last couple months, I don't know. Literally every goal was like a 1-goal game, or we went in overtime.
Okay.
When we would lose at the end. So like we had a lot of close games, and so that was a direct performance. And guys played better. Guys lasted the whole season, which had really like never happened there before. Women's basketball was a little harder to tell because they played so many minutes.
Yeah.
It was like I think at the end, like, they weren't really fresh anymore. Like, they were just surviving almost. They were in like survival mode because they had played so many minutes.
But they actually were there.
But they played the whole year. Yeah. So, imagine if your 7 players go down to 5. Like, you're
done.
You're pretty much done. Yeah. Yeah. So, they played the whole year, and they got the minutes at all of them, the experience. And a new coach came in, so it's, she didn't have much to work with. Players transfer and leave just like anywhere, so they should be a lot better this year. And they have 15 girls now.
So is there any way that you can, how do you deal with taking that success and then translating it to the coaches who might seem old school and don't want to do this? And there's no right answer for this.
What I've done and what I'm going to actually do with Coach, the men's basketball coach, is taking data, so showing like we have like specific examples from hockey. Like, here's when we played a team Friday and we played a team Saturday, we were too tired. We lost by a goal on Friday and lost by 4 goals on Saturday. And then 3 weeks later, when we started doing this, we would lose by a goal on Friday and win Saturday, or lose in overtime and Saturday. So like the games were comparable.
Yeah.
You had guys who lasted, and then you have no injuries, really no injuries at all. So that's a big thing. So I think bringing that into basketball is going to help, and then I think having the players bought into me is a good thing too, because they can go to the coach too and say, what Matt's doing, we like the stuff Matt's doing, and try to go from there.
Hold on, we have ping pong guys in the background. love the podcast in the office that has a ping pong game. It's like, hey guys. It's awesome.
You're going to have to edit this?
No, we'll just roll it. It's totally fine.
What?
No, we just keep rolling it.
Oh.
So you spent a year in the CoachMePlus office, which really wasn't much in the office. You were on the road more than anything. You were, you're kind of like this intern. You go to a couple schools. You're working at different places, and then finally you get like on the road and you get exposed to like everything, right? What would you say were like some of the coolest things that you saw out there with what teams were doing, or with what coaches might have been doing?
There's a lot of them.
What really stood out?
Stood out to me was the Ottawa sports.
Yeah.
Kyle Thorne with they had football, soccer, and hockey.
Yep.
I think because it translates the best to me. He had we had 3 professional sports, just him, no assistant.
Yeah.
And they had small budget, and he did the grip. He did basically I'm a spin image of what he did. That's who I learned it from. So he did grip strength. He did weigh-ins, weigh-outs. He did a subjective questionnaire. They did USG. So they did urine specific gravity. And he saw great results. Very simple, very basic, but at a high level. So you're at the professional at the highest level.
They made
and that's what he's doing.
They made it to the CFL championship too.
Yeah, and then soccer or hockey won.
Soccer made it to the championship. Hockey was number 1 in their division, and the football team, second-year expansion team, made it to the championship as well.
So yeah, super successful, and they barely had. I mean, I would ask them all the time, how do you know this or that and this, and at the end of the day, he's well, we really don't have any soft tissue injuries, so I think we're doing the right thing. So
Sure.
he. Everything, the red, green, yellows, standard deviation, all that stuff was basically taken from him. That's who I learned it from. That was really cool. I interned with the Sabres, so I learned a lot with them, which was really cool. The weigh-ins, weigh-outs from Dougie, that was kind of where I got that from, Doug McKenney, and the Sabres. And the other one I really liked was John Shackleton with Villanova.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many good ones. I mean, they're all good. But he's the same thing. They have heart rate monitors, so they do a little more. They have they did their own version of the FMS, which I've kind of picked up on.
Okay.
Which I liked for basketball. So they basically, he would have them squat with a dowel or a PVC pipe. He would have them lunge with a PVC pipe. He would have them push up or do a pull up, and that was kind of the eval. So I've kind of taken stuff from there. He puts inside his workouts, which are really creative. Which he'll put he'll group a mobility. If they're squatting, he'll do an ankle dorsiflexion or something like that,
Sure.
or they're doing a lunge, and you're attacking the areas for that sport where they're limited range of motion. Basketball is pretty much ankles, hips. So that was something really cool to pick up on, and obviously they won the national championship last year, so that's a good guy to learn from.
Yeah.
And just the way he broke down programming and planning the year and grouping things together and not overkilling them. Their program too is very basic, very simple. They're big on urine specific gravity, so their big indicator is urine specific gravity. Ours is weigh-ins, weigh-outs, but it's the same difference.
Sure.
And they won't allow guys to even practice or play. So their kind of thing is, if you're in the red, which they'll have guys in the red, they won't even allow guys to practice. They'll have to go get fluids before they get back out there. And if you don't practice, then I'm sure the coach. I don't know this, but I'm sure the coach has some punishment for you that you don't like, whether it's playing time or running. So they'll do it that way, which is great. And the way he broke down nutrition with them too is kind of he sent me his whole thing, and I kind of made my own version of that, and that's what I sent out to our players. So he's super smart with that and educating them on. He was big on it's not that they don't want to, it's that we need to educate them. So I think that's athletes today is not that they're lazy, the old school, they don't work hard. It's just now they want to be told why they're doing something and how it's going to help them. So if you give them this packet and you show them why we're doing weigh-ins and weigh-outs and why we're lifting and why they need to jump higher and why they need to run faster and why they need to eat healthier, and you make it make sense to them, they're going to buy in.
Yeah, it makes sense. Any surprises while you were out there? Coaches that are just, and you don't have to drop names, but just coaches who you were really surprised were still as old school and rudimentary as...
Yeah, there are a few cases there too, but guys set in their ways. But I don't know if you'll change that or not. But you definitely have those guys that think it's kind of the data is overwhelming and won't help, and they've done things their way. But yeah, there were not many of those cases, but there were definitely a few of those that didn't want to look at it. I think some of it's just the work, too. They're old school, so they might not they probably don't even use like Excel, so they don't want to track the numbers and whatnot. So, but the idea of CoachMePlus for me is it's taking time away. It's not adding time. So all that stuff they're entering in, and I'm seeing that. So I'm the one benefiting from it because they're doing the work. I initially set it up, which doesn't take much time, and they're doing the work, and I'm benefiting from the numbers. So I get to make my program better, which makes my job better and makes them play better and keeps them healthier. So it's like a big win for me and really for them, like they're doing the work.
Yeah. I think we have like 5 minutes left or so. Looking forward, and this is your first year. What lessons have you learned that what mistakes did you make that you wouldn't do again, and just take it and chuck it?
The biggest mistake I made was the men's basketball culture. So the culture needed to be changed in the whole school, right? And there's teams that were super easy. You explain, hey guys, this is what we're gonna do. Here's my philosophy. You do anything, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
There were teams that were harder, and you had to grind them. And then there was men's basketball who came from a culture that they kind of just do whatever they want. And I was like, well, this is the way the coach does it, and So I guess the biggest mistake I made was like listening to, like it's my room, listening to somebody else kind of be like, well, these guys, if they come late, they're our best player. They're not going to sit, or there's no repercussions if they can't make it to lift that day because they're at tutor, etc. Like it was stuff that in the past was tolerated and drove me crazy. So for the whole first semester, I didn't attack that the way I should have. But the second semester I did. So that was the biggest mistake I probably made, was just not attacking it right away. But then in the second semester, we changed a lot of things in the weight room, which are way better now.
Nice.
So, and I guess the learning of that is that, again, like going back to that old school mentality of like they don't want to work as hard and da. So they literally wouldn't do anything for me in the weight room. I mean, some of the guys who wanted to work, right?
Yeah,
so this is the old school thinking. The guys who didn't want to work. So I was like, oh, great, I'm one of those guys now. So I'm like, I can't watch myself do that. So
what is it? The five top guys, 10 middle guys, and 5 bottom guys,
and
10 middle follow.
That's like the old school coaches, and I'm like, I refuse to believe that. So I had 10 rules from like, they can't swear, they can't sit down, they can't wear jewelry, and I started implementing more of John Shackleton's workouts where we go from like a mobility to a strength, or a power to a mobility. So there always had something in between that wasn't going to kill them. Wasn't going to make it super hard on them. So we went from like something hard to something easy, or maybe group like a core exercise, like, or whatever, an ab exercise, whatever the group name is now for that, with like a leg exercise or a bench or something. And the harder, and then being late. So basically, all this stuff was burpees. So if you were late, a minute per player late was 10 burpees. So for like when their season, and I had to wait till the season was over to implement this. So when the season was over, literally all we did was burpees.
Just to get these guys into a...
They would be 20 guys that up 20 minutes late. We'd do 100 burpees before we did anything. We'd do 60 burpees, do 80 burpees, do 40 burpees. Well, after about 10 days, a couple weeks of training, they didn't want to do burpees anymore. So, and I wasn't, mean or anything. It was just, that was the rule. And then the best part was the guys started taking control. So, like, no longer, I didn't have to be, the mean guy who was like, oh, we're doing burpees. The guys were like, yo, don't sit down. Why are you sitting down? Why are you, like, guys who finished early also had to do, like, work. So if you got through the workout quicker than, if I finished before you, well, you got to go do extra stuff. So a guy would like want to just stand there in the corner because they couldn't sit, and they'd be like, "Yo, you're better than the team." So stuff like that, and now it's pretty remarkable. Like, wow. They're actually one of the hardest working teams, and I'm not nice to them at all. So I mean,
but
I'm definitely I'm the hardest on them.
You got the team to push on each other.
Right.
That's great.
So it's good. Their lifts are just as good as anyone's now, if not better.
Nice, awesome. If there's anything that you could do next year, and I mean anything, like you can go out and spend $100,000 on, tech or whatever. What would it be? What's your like pie in the sky? I wish I could do this. Implementation.
There's a lot of them. I would either go with like, I think I would go HRV maybe,
Okay.
like Omega Wave or something to tie in.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would go with, just more of a,
Okay.
and buy like 300 of them if I had the budget, and then we'd all get the results through CoachMePlus, and it'd be then every team and every player could do it.
Yeah.
I guess that would be it, but
All right.
good with what we got.
Have you actually tried the HRV for training app?
No.
It does the finger.
Is that the
finger on
face?
the camera. No, that's the Cardio Buddy.
Cardio Buddy, I've tried that.
Yeah. That one's. And I'll tell you what, I've worn my heart rate monitor with that thing.
My Cardio Buddy?
Yeah.
That one's good, yeah.
Totally spot on. I would recommend if you listen to Rob Pacey, right? So I would
Yeah.
recommend checking out that app if you're to do affordable heart rate variability.
Yeah, I think
Try
that's
it on yourself for a while.
Yeah.
To play with it.
But I like the grip strength and vertical
Yeah.
jump, like it works. So
No, you've done a great job.
I wouldn't I don't want to overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Yeah, no, I think you've done a great job. I think the soft tissue injuries speak for themselves, and the
Right.
fact that you're doing this on a shoestring budget in your first year
We
is
had
pretty remarkable.
We had one ACL last year
Yeah, that's
out of 300
amazing.
athletes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Good job,
that's
man.
pretty good.
Anything you want to add before we wrap up? No,
Mm-mm.
not doing any special promotions. You don't want to recruit anybody in Niagara.
No special promotions. I'd like an assistant. Assistant strength coach would be nice.
Get yourself an intern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have interns. I have to do the work to get them from other schools. But I have one this summer, too, from Mercyhurst.
Nice.
The other ones I had from Canisius.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Again, it was Matt Wietlispach from Niagara University, and your first year as a D1 coach. I think you did a pretty good job.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Matt. All right, we'll wrap and we'll do the intros and outros later. Cool.
Intros. Cool. Yeah, thanks. It was fun.
Pause. Thanks again for listening to the CoachMePlus Applied Sports Science podcast. Hope we made your ride to the gym or from the gym a little bit easier. You were listening to Matt Wietlispach from Niagara University's Purple Eagles. You can follow him on Twitter at MattW0892. Yeah, I know, it's easy to remember. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and of course, subscribe to the Applied Sports Science newsletter. Go to CoachMePlus.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Look for our next podcast in the next 2 weeks, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.